Welcome to this video. Today I am going to do a review of the web browser from Brave. Now this browser is advertised as more private, more secure, and faster than the competition. And I will actually open it up and dive into the actual browser itself here in just a moment. But for those of you who do not know, yes, there are other options when it comes to web browsers. Most of you are aware of Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Microsoft Edge, which most people still confuse with Internet Explorer, even though they are different. And of course, there's Safari for Mac users. But we are not limited to just these four options. Alternatives such as Opera have been slowly gaining more of the market share. And of course, the Onion router, or Tor for short, has gained a lot more exposure in recent years due to the mainstream media's coverage of hacking, privacy, and the deep dark web. And there are many more browsers that I have not yet even mentioned. When it comes to selecting a web browser, users generally by far will prioritize performance more than anything else. People want their internet experience to be simple, they want it to work the first time, and they want it to work quickly. Now in recent years, security and privacy have gained more of a priority, especially with all the coverage of hacking and malware. But it can be difficult to find a web browser that excels at all three of these categories. In this video, we will take a look at the pros and cons of the Brave web browser, as well as its functionality. It's important to note, Brave is built on Chromium, which is the same source code Google Chrome uses. This means Brave users may possibly enjoy the same performance and security benefits found in Chrome, specifically towards malware and hacking. However, one gigantic difference that we do hope for with the Brave web browser is privacy, because Google Chrome completely fails at privacy. Now, some have voiced privacy concerns about Brave simply because it's built on Chromium. However, unlike Chrome, Brave is open source, and on the surface, it does appear they take privacy much more seriously when you read their policies and when you look at the options that they provide within the Brave browser to reduce data collection. Now, while Mozilla Firefox is often considered one of the most private options, and even Safari is a good recommendation, these two don't always excel at performance and security, again specifically when talking about hacking and malware, though the results can very much vary between users because everybody's using the internet for different websites, for different things, different hardware, different internet service provider from a different location, and so everyone's results across browsers are not always going to be the same. So this is just generally speaking. And then of course Microsoft Edge is there and nobody really cares. Now I'm going to list a link down below in the notes down in the video description to where you can go to download the Brave web browser if you choose to do so. And as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and open up the browser. And by default, it just opens up to the dashboard, which is what you're looking at right now. And my first impression of this browser when I first took a look at it is that it's a very clean user interface, a much cleaner looking browser than some of the competition. And I like it very much. Now, just going across the top bar here, we have our backwards and forward buttons. The home option is not listed here by default, but you can go into the settings to turn it on. I like to have it. Of course, we have the refresh, bookmarks. This is where you type your web addresses as well as it's your search box, which is pretty standard these days, being into one. And then over here to the right, we have the Brave Shield, which we will go over here in just a moment, and then the menu button for all of your menu options. Now, I'm not going to go over every single setting or option that's available in this browser. A lot of it's standard. A lot of it you will find in most other browsers. What I want to focus on is what sets this browser apart, the pros, what makes it different. And so to do this, the first thing I'm going to do is go to espn.com. Now, every time you visit a website, you will have this icon up here in the top right corner. This is the Brave logo, and it is for the Shield options. Now, when Brave advertises itself as a more secure, more private, faster web browser, a lot of that is dependent on what you're looking at right here on this menu. All of these are going to contribute to those three categories. Now I'm going to go over the options that are listed here on this menu. Starting here in the top, you'll notice that it lists the website that you're currently on, and that's because you can set these settings specific for individual websites. It will remember the settings that you choose here. You can even just turn all of them off by turning the shield off, and it will remember that every time you go to ESPN to leave the shield off. But we're going to go ahead and leave it turned on. And the first setting I do want to go over is this ad control option to block ads. Now, ads do slow websites down because it makes the web page take longer to load, as well as they can be somewhat malicious. They can involve tracking, and so having an ad blocker in that sense can be very good. On the other hand, of course, we want ads because we want people who are developers, content creators to get paid for the work they do. Even myself, here on YouTube, the ads support the channel. And so of course in that sense, we want to have ads again so those people can get paid. But Brave kind of takes a different approach. It gives you the option to block ads, which is the first option. You can also turn it on if you would like to. But you'll notice there's an option here that says show Brave ads. The reason it has that is because if we go to the settings option and then come over to payments, Brave has an option, a way for you to turn off and block ads, but still make donations to those content creators and developers so they still get paid for the work that they do. I don't know of any other web browsers that do this. I am aware of other services that provide similar options, but as far as a web browser that has this option built into it, this is the first time I've seen it. The other thing, when you're using the show Brave ads, what that allows is ads that have been approved by Brave. If you watch those, it will actually allow you, the user, to collect currency in your Brave wallet. In other words, you're getting paid, you, the user, are getting paid to use the Brave web browser and view the ads that they select. Again, I don't know of any other browser out there that pays you to use their browser. Now, of course, it's going to be small amounts, and this option is not in full swing. This browser is still a work in progress, and so if you think you're going to get on today and start collecting currency, that's not going to happen. But this is going to be a future feature that they are currently working on and getting it into the final stages. Also, just for your knowledge, these payments and currency are all in cryptocurrency, and so if you wanted to add some of your own money to your Brave wallet so you can make a donation to sites or developers or content creators that you support, then you would have to use cryptocurrency to do that. You'll also notice on the menu it does keep track of how many ads have been blocked, and so over time you'll be able to see how much of an impact, along with any of these numbers, that these settings and features are having. So in short, this ad control option gives the user the option to block ads, yet also they get the option to choose if they want to make a donation to those content creators so that they still get paid. Now, ad control or ad blockers generally are not default, as I've already mentioned, in the more common web browsers like Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Safari. It is built into Opera, but even if you were to download an extension or add-on into one of those browsers, they're not going to give you the option to make donations like Brave does. And so that's a very unique pro or feature of the Brave web browser when it comes to ad blockers. Also, I should mention, as of right now, for those of you who don't know, I am not a huge fan of extensions or most add-ons in general. The reason being is because they weaken the browser's security and privacy. And so to see some of these features built in standard into the browser is a huge, huge plus. Next, we have fingerprinting protection or tracking protection. Now, Mozilla Firefox does have a tracking protection built into its browser, but Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari do not. Opera doesn't either, in case you're wondering. And so this is a very good feature to have as well. And then you will notice that it does have a number here to keep track of how many block or tracking attempts it blocks. Additionally, we have HTTPS everywhere, Again, the more standard web browsers do not have this by default, so you would have to download an extension. But this one has it just built in right here. Now this only works if the website has a secure version of their website. You can see ESPN does not have a secure version of their website, and this really is inexcusable on ESPN's part because they are way too large of a company, and their parent company Disney is one of the largest, most profitable companies on the planet. So to not have a secure version of your website is completely absurd. But the point of this feature is anytime that you visit a website, if there is a secure version of that website available, that is the version that it will force, and it will keep track of how many upgrades it makes right here. Really, all websites should have an HTTPS version. Obviously, in the case of ESPN, that is not always the case. Now, for maximum security, you can do the option to block scripts. Again, to get this feature in other more common browsers, you would again have to install an extension. This does increase security and privacy, but it can also break some website functions. And so if you turn this on and suddenly the website's not displaying right or something's not running correctly, it's going to be most likely related to this option right here. Now the options over here on the right to control cookies and block phishing or malware sites, these two options you will find in most browsers, and so those ones aren't quite as unique, but still very important. Now the Brave Shield was the first thing that I wanted to go over as far as what sets this browser apart from other browsers. The second big thing that sets this browser apart is if I go here to the menu, there is an option here that says New Private Tab with Tor. And so for those of you who do not know what Tor is, it does have a brief explanation here in this little paragraph, but basically what Tor does is it bounces your internet traffic around and hides your IP address, so that way websites and other people cannot track what it is that you're doing on the internet. In other words, it's a much more private, secure way to view the web. Now, as far as encrypting your internet traffic, it is important to note that to have a complete secure encrypted connection, that only works with Tor if you have HTTPS turned on and if the websites you're viewing have an HTTPS version, because there are certain points in that traffic when it's being bounced around that it can be intercepted if there's not an HTTPS version. Also important to note that Tor can very much slow down your browsing experience because your traffic again is being bounced around, as well as because of that behavior, some websites may notice that, and so a website may behave differently or certain parts of the website may not work properly when using Tor. So for some of you, a better option may be to use a VPN, especially if you're planning on viewing like videos where you need a very fast connection. A VPN can be a better alternative because you can choose where your IP address or what server you connect to. You can also have a faster connection. You'll have a secure connection, and it works with all browsers, whereas the Tor connection is limited to this tab. Now, of course, I can have more than one Tor tab open. I can have as many as I want. I can open up another one here. You'll notice that it says Tor up here on the tab, so that way you know which ones are a Tor tab. If I do just a normal private tab, you'll see it just has the little shades there on the tab, and then just your regular tab will just be normal. But I really like this feature because Tor is very private. For those of privacy advocates out there, you know that Tor is very private. It's a great option, and there's not very many browsers that have options built into them to conceal your IP address. I do know that the Opera browser does have a built-in VPN. It's not very good. It's there. It does get the job done, but it can be slow. It doesn't have a lot of options, and it's limited to just that browser. If you're going to go the VPN route, you want to get a full VPN client because you're going to have a lot more options. It's going to work with all of your browsers, and it will do a much better job of preventing leakage as well. A few other quick security and privacy settings that this browser does include is if I go up to the menu button and go down to settings and then over to security and then it'll go down just a little bit. We do have an option for do not track. You will find that in pretty much all web browsers these days. But additionally, we do have the option for strict site isolation, where each site is loaded in its own process. So that way, if you come across something malicious, it will minimize the threat. As well as it does have WebRTC control, which this is very useful in case you use like a VPN and you want to control WebRTC leakage, so that way your identity does not get leaked. And then additionally, if we go over to advanced, we do have options here to control the amount of data that is collected. We have options to turn this on and off. And so those are additional privacy and security settings that are available within this browser. Overall, I think the Brave web browser is a very good browser. I really like what they've done as far as prioritizing security and privacy and the foundation that they've laid as far as where they're going to start and where they could possibly go. And also trying to build a browser that does perform well, because like I've already mentioned, that's mainly what users prioritize is performance. Now, as good as this web browser is, it's not without its flaws. And I'm going to go over some of the cons right now. Now, a lot of these, or probably most of these, have to do with the fact that this is a work in progress. This is not a finished web browser. And really, there's no such thing as a finished web browser, because they're always going to be updating all web browsers and making changes because of security, performance, and other things. But there are still some fundamental features that still need to be worked out with this browser. Some things that have come up, for example, some people are reporting that if they try to load a PDF in the Brave web browser, it doesn't always work correctly. There are very limited extensions available in this browser. So for example, right now, if I open up the menu and go to settings and then over here to extensions, this is the complete full current list of extensions that are available for this browser. Now this is going to change. You will in the future have the option to add or install other extensions, but for me, this limited list is actually a good thing, because again, as I've already mentioned, extensions are a huge security and privacy problem. And so my opinion is this is great because it forces, security and privacy. But I do understand that people want the freedom of choice. They want the freedom to choose. I can get on board with that. I understand that. And so again, they will be changing that. You will have the option to add extensions or more extensions in the future. Other issues that have come up is sometimes certain web pages do not always display correctly or display a little bit differently. For example, I've noticed this with IGN or Rotten Tomatoes, or if I go to ESPN and try to play one of the videos there, it doesn't always load or work correctly. And all of these have to do with the Brave Shield. So the simple quick solution is just turn the Brave Shield off and it will work. It will load fine. Or you may have to just tweak some of the settings within the Shield itself. Other things that may come up, for example, if you go to Netflix, you're going to get a pop-up you've probably never seen before asking you to install a plugin, and it will even give a warning, just because if it's something that Brave cannot control as far as privacy and security, they're just warning you to let you know that they have no control over it. But if you want to get Netflix working, you would have to install that plugin for it to work. Additionally, and this is a big one for me, up until now, most of these are just minor, but this next one is a big issue, and one of the main reasons why I would not go to using Brave as my full-time browser, at least not yet, is because if I open up the menu and go to settings, it does have an option to sync. However, it doesn't always work. I've tried it. It's unreliable. I've noticed that it will sync some things and some things it won't. I noticed it synced half my bookmarks. The other half, I don't know if it's just sending it via the Pony Express and it hasn't arrived yet, because it seemed, as the days go on, it seems to slowly update it, sort of. And I've also come across complaints as far as the mobile apps not always working correctly, having some bugs, but you can't even currently sync to mobile devices. So for me, where I have a lot of different electronic devices, I pretty much have to be able to sync across devices. To update each one individually manually takes way too long. If you only have one electronic device, this may not be much of a big deal to you, but for those of you who do rely on being able to sync across devices, this is a reason I would hold off not using Brave as a full-time browser, at least not just yet. Now, some other minor issues that are really just nitpicky things that you may or may not care about. For example, if I go to the menu and go to Settings and go to Security and then click on Clear Browsing Data, yes, it has the option to clear browser data just like any other browser, yet you'll notice there's no option to select a time frame, which virtually every other browser has that option. And so that's something that still needs to be added in to this browser. Also, if you're a developer, like a web developer, there's no major web development tools like you would find in Chrome. And so, again, these may be more nitpicky things, but just some other things I do want to point out. As a final word, I do think this browser is great. I really think they're going in a wonderful direction. They do just need to work out some of these cons, especially the syncing option. But as time goes on and they get those issues worked out, I do recommend that you look at Brave as an option for a full-time web browser. That's everything for this review. If you have any questions, comments, please post them down below. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have a wonderful day.